My parents warned they'd hike my rent unless I turned into my sister's free nanny. They never expected I'd vanish overnight, leaving them to handle all the chaos alone. The moment my parents delivered their ultimatum, I knew my life was about to shatter. They demanded I become an unpaid nanny for my sister, or my rent would nearly double, but they never expected me to disappear overnight. That Tuesday morning, an email from my mom landed in my inbox like a lead weight, subject line family meeting this weekend, mandatory. I felt a chill run down my spine. Nothing good ever came from a mandatory family meeting, especially not after years of living independently. It had been 6 years since I'd moved out after college, into an apartment my parents, Eleanor and George, owned just a couple of blocks from their place. Back then, it seemed like a smart move. They charged me $800 a month, definitely below market rate for our suburban Maryland neighborhood. In return, I kept up the property, handled little fixes myself. As a financial analyst, I made enough to live anywhere, but saving for future goals just made sense. My older sister, Chloe, lived with her husband, Adam, in this huge 4-bedroom colonial they'd bought 5 years ago, the fanciest part of town. They had 3 kids, Lily, who was 9, Noah, 6, and little Maya, just turned 1. Chloe taught yoga part-time, like 3 classes a week. Adam was in logistics, traveling constantly for his job. Saturday arrived, strangely warm for October, and I drove to their house with this growing knot of dread in my stomach. The last mandatory meeting was 2 years ago, just for kitchen cabinet colors. This felt different. Chloe's Mercedes was already there. Through the window, I saw my father, George, pacing, and my mother, Eleanor, stiff as a board on the couch. Chloe was in the armchair, looking utterly exhausted, but with something else I couldn't put my finger on. "There you are," Eleanor said the moment I walked in. "We've been waiting." I actually glanced at my watch, 11:58. "I'm early, actually." George just pointed to the love seat. "Sit down. We need to discuss something important." The air felt thick, suffocating, as I sank onto the cushion. Chloe wouldn't look at me, just twirled her wedding ring, a nervous tic from high school. "Your sister needs help," Eleanor launched in, no pleasantries. "Adam's job is more demanding, and with 3 kids, Chloe is completely overwhelmed. Maya isn't sleeping. Lily needs homework help every night. Noah has behavioral issues, constant supervision." I just waited, stomach tightening, knowing exactly where this was going. "As a family, we support each other," George chimed in. "So your mother and I decided the best solution is for you to take on more responsibility with your nieces and nephew." "Take on more responsibility?" I repeated slowly, carefully. Chloe finally looked up. "I need someone to watch them after school. Just a few hours daily until Adam gets home, and some weekends for events or personal time." "You want me to babysit?" The words came out sharper than I'd meant. "We prefer helping family," Eleanor said, her voice icy. "You're their aunt. It's not babysitting when it's your own family." Heat flushed through my chest. "I work full-time. I'm at the office until 6 most nights, sometimes later." "You could adjust your schedule," George suggested, dismissively. "Talk to your boss about leaving early. This is more important than some corporate job." His tone made my jaw clench. My corporate job was my career, 2 promotions in 5 years, on track for senior analyst. I worked damn hard for that. "And if I can't adjust my schedule?" I asked. My parents exchanged a look. Eleanor folded her hands. "Then we'll need to reconsider your current housing arrangement." The threat hung heavy in the air. For a second, I couldn't even process it. "Are you threatening to raise my rent?" It came out almost a whisper. "We're simply saying family members who don't contribute to the family's well-being can't expect the same level of support," George elaborated. "That apartment is worth at least $1,500 a month." We give you a huge discount because you're our daughter, but if you won't help your sister, maybe it's time to reassess. I turned to Chloe. Is this what you want? Did you ask them to do this? She looked away again. I'm drowning. I can't do this alone. Mom and Dad are too old, and Adam's parents live in Texas. You're the only option. I am not an option, I said, voice firm. I am a person, with my own life, my own career. You chose to have 3 children with Adam. I didn't sign up to raise them. Eleanor's face hardened. That's a selfish attitude. Family helps family. Our parents helped us constantly when you and Chloe were little. Your parents lived next door and were retired. I shot back. I'm 28, with a full-time career and my own life. A life that includes living in our property at a discount, George cut in. The manipulation was so bald, it took my breath away. This whole meeting was staged. Chloe, apparently, was okay with using our relationship as leverage. So, my choices are, become an unpaid nanny, or my rent nearly doubles. I wanted it spelled out. Those are dramatic terms, Eleanor dismissed. We're asking you to spend time with your nieces and nephew a few afternoons a week and some weekends. Your rent stays the same. Refuse, and we adjust to market rate. Perfectly reasonable. Nothing about this was reasonable. I stood, my mind racing through numbers. $1,500 versus $800? That's an $8,400 annual increase, money I was saving for my own down payment. When do you need an answer? I asked. Today, George said. Chloe needs help starting Monday. I looked at Chloe. She still wouldn't meet my eyes. Did you know they were going to threaten me? It's not a threat, she mumbled. I really need help. I thought you'd want to spend time with them. Wanting to spend time with them and being coerced into unpaid childcare are 2 completely different things, I said. You understand that, right? She said nothing. I grabbed my purse. I need to think about this. There's nothing to think about. Eleanor snapped. Either you help your sister, or you pay fair market rent. Those are your options. I walked to the door, hand on the knob. Just so I'm clear, if I agree to this, what exactly would be expected? Chloe pulled out her phone, started reading from notes, pick up Lily from school at 3:15, Noah at 3:30. Take them home, supervise homework. Dinner at 6. Adam's usually home by 7, so you'd stay until then. And I'd need you for 2 full weekends a month. My mental math word. 4 hours daily weekdays, 2 full weekend days. Over 100 hours of unpaid labor monthly. At minimum wage, that's over $1,200, way more than the $700 rent savings. What about the baby? I asked. Maya would be with me most of the time, Chloe said. But occasionally, I might need you to watch all 3. Occasionally? I repeated flatly. This isn't a negotiation, George interjected. We're telling you what the family needs. Your answer should be immediate and obvious. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. The utter dismissal of my autonomy, the casual expectation I'd upend my life for problems that weren't mine. The financial coercion, thinly veiled as family obligation. It all crystallized with shocking clarity. I'll have my answer for you by Monday, I said, opening the door. We need it today. Eleanor insisted. Monday, I repeated, and walked out before they could say another word. I drove home in a daze, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Inside my apartment, I collapsed on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. 10 minutes? An hour? My phone buzzed, messages piling up, 3 from Eleanor, 2 from Chloe, 1 from George. I silenced it, didn't even look. This small apartment, my 1 bedroom, 1 bath, kitchen opening into the living area. I'd furnished it so carefully over 6 years, each piece chosen with love. That reading chair by the window, 3 months to find. The vintage mirror, a lucky estate sale find. This was my space, my first real home as an adult, and they were willing to price me out, to force me into servitude. That's when the idea sparked. A small ember of anger, growing into something cold, calculated. If they wanted to play games with my housing and financial security, they were about to learn about consequences. I opened my laptop. Research. First, comparable apartments. They were right, $800 was below market, but not by their ridiculous amount. Similar 1 bedrooms nearby went for $1,100 to $1,300, not $1,500. They'd inflated the numbers to scare me. Then, my lease. A year-long lease, auto-renewing, 60-day notice required. Rent increases? 90 days written notice, couldn't exceed 10% annually. They couldn't legally hike my rent to $1,500. They were bluffing, banking on my ignorance. Anger became cold, sharp focus. I spent the rest of Saturday and all of Sunday planning. By Monday morning, I had a plan. A complete strategy. First thing, I called work, took 3 vacation days I'd been hoarding. Then, I contacted an old real estate agent. Within 2 hours, she sent 7 listings in my budget, ready for immediate move-in. By afternoon, I'd toured 4, applied for my top choice, a 1-bedroom in a renovated industrial building, 20 minutes away. $1,200 a month, a stretch, but manageable. Newer building, gym, covered parking. Slightly smaller, but exposed brick and huge windows. Just flooded with light. Tuesday morning, the property manager called, approved. I could move in that weekend. I wanted to. That afternoon, I sent Eleanor and George my 60-day notice via certified mail, just as the lease required. Professional, no explanation, just standard notification. Copies made, digital and physical. Then, I started packing. 6 years, so much stuff. Every evening after work, I filled and labeled boxes. Movers booked for Saturday morning. Address updated everywhere, bank, credit cards, employer, utilities transferred. Everything. My phone never stopped. Eleanor called 17 times between Tuesday and Friday. George left increasingly angry voicemails. Chloe sent endless texts, oscillating between guilt trips and furious accusations. I didn't answer a single one. Friday evening, final walkthrough. Everything packed but my bedding and Saturday's clothes. I cleaned meticulously, making sure it was perfect. No grounds for them to keep my security deposit. I felt surprisingly calm. No second guessing, no guilt. Just a profound certainty I was doing the right thing. Saturday morning dawned gray and rainy, fitting the mood. Movers were there at 8 a.m. sharp, efficient, professional. By 11, the apartment was empty except my cleaning supplies. I scrubbed the bathroom till it sparkled, wiped down every surface, vacuumed twice. By 1 p.m., it looked better than when I moved in 6 years ago. I left the keys on the counter with a short note, vacated today, expect deposit back in 30 days. Then I walked out, locked the door, and dropped the keys through the mail slot. My phone buzzed relentlessly all morning. I finally checked it on the drive to my new place, 23 missed calls, 41 texts, 3 voicemails. I listened to Eleanor's latest, "This is absolutely ridiculous. You can't just leave without talking to us. We're your parents. Call me back immediately." I deleted it. My new apartment felt strange, echoing. Movers had placed furniture, but it was all so different. I spent the afternoon unpacking essentials, figuring out where anything went. Sunday, more unpacking. Eleanor called 6 more times. Chloe sent a scathing email about me destroying the family, abandoning my nieces and nephew. George left a voicemail threatening unspecified consequences. I blocked all 3 of them. Monday morning, I went to work like any other day. My colleague, Sarah, noticed something in our meeting. "You seem different," she said. "Good different. Did something happen?" "I moved this weekend," I told her. "New apartment. That's exciting. Where?" I told her about the building, the exposed brick, the great location. She was genuinely happy for me. We chatted about decorating, stores. It felt so good to have a normal conversation about normal things. Tuesday afternoon, a certified letter arrived at work. They'd found my office address. It demanded I contact them immediately regarding serious family matters and threatened legal action if I didn't respond in 48 hours. Wednesday, on my lunch break, I took it to David Miller, an attorney specializing in family law and rental disputes. He read it, then I explained everything: the meeting, the ultimatum, the threatened rent, my lease research, my legal move. He took notes. "They have no legal grounds," he said. "You fulfilled your lease, provided proper notice. The lease outlines rent increase requirements they didn't follow. They can't force you into childcare." "Could they still sue?" I asked. "Anyone can file a frivolous lawsuit," he said, "but it would be dismissed quickly. Still, given this letter, I recommend a formal response from my office. An attorney involved early often prevents escalation." I hired him instantly. By Friday, he'd sent Eleanor and George a letter. I was represented, all future communication through his office, and frivolous legal action would result in counterclaims for harassment and fees. The calls and messages stopped immediately. For 2 weeks, silence. I settled into my new apartment, new routines, new neighborhood. Work was normal. My life felt lighter, like I'd unknowingly carried a crushing weight that had finally lifted. Then, my Aunt Carol called. She's Eleanor's younger sister, always reasonable. I hesitated, then answered. "I heard what happened," she said, straight away. "Your mother is beside herself." "I'm sure she is," I replied, carefully neutral. "She says you abandoned the family over nothing, just disappeared without warning." Anger flared, but I kept my voice steady. "That's not accurate. I was given an ultimatum: provide extensive unpaid childcare, or my rent would nearly double, violating my lease. I chose to find other housing." Silence. "They said you refused to help Chloe with the kids." "I was told to provide 4 hours of childcare every weekday, plus 2 full weekend days monthly, all unpaid, or face financial consequences." "That's not refusing to help. That's refusing to be coerced." More silence. "I didn't know it was like that." "No one asked for my side," I pointed out. Aunt Carol sighed. "Your mother presented it very differently. Made it sound like you just didn't want to spend time with your nieces and nephew." "How's Chloe managing?" I asked, genuinely curious despite everything. "She hired a nanny. Your parents are helping pay for it. They're furious about the expense." I almost laughed. "So, they're paying someone else to do what they expected me to do for free." "When you put it that way." Aunt Carol trailed off. "They really thought you'd just go along with it." "I know. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing," she said quietly. "What they did was manipulative. I told your mother that, but she doesn't want to hear it." "Thank you for saying that," I said, truly meaning it. "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" "I'm actually really good," I realized as I said it. "Better than I've been in a while." We talked a bit more. I felt so validated, knowing at least one person in my family understood. 3 weeks after I moved, David called. Your parents sent another letter to my office. They want to arrange a meeting to discuss the family situation. What does that mean? I asked. Vague details, but they're requesting mediation. They want to talk things through with a neutral third party. Do I have to? Absolutely not. No obligation. I thought about it. Part of me wanted to refuse on principle, but another part was curious. What did they actually want? Would you attend as my attorney? I asked. If you proceed, yes, I would. Let me think. That weekend, I weighed my options. Closure? Or more manipulation? I listed outcomes, risks, benefits. Monday morning, I called David back. I'll do the mediation, but under conditions, neutral location, you present, and ground rules beforehand for topics. I'll communicate that to their attorney. Their attorney? I repeated. They hired a lawyer? They retained someone last week. Standard for formal mediation. Both parties typically have legal representation. Mediation was set for 2 weeks later, in a conference room at a local business center. David briefed me thoroughly, what to expect, what not to say, how to hold my boundaries. The day arrived, gray November skies, cold wind. I wore a navy suit, like it was a critical business meeting. David met me in the parking lot, and we walked in together. Eleanor and George sat on one side, their attorney, Brenda Harrison, a stern woman. Mr. Hayes, the mediator, an older man, was at the head. David and I sat opposite my parents. Eleanor looked like she'd aged 5 years. George's jaw was tight, barely contained anger. Neither met my gaze. Mr. Hayes began with the standard spiel, process, ground rules, everyone gets to speak, no interruptions, no personal attacks. Goal, understanding and resolution. Who would like to begin? Mr. Hayes asked. George spoke first. We asked for this meeting because our family has been torn apart over a misunderstanding. We love our daughter and want to repair our relationship. I kept my face neutral, waiting. Eleanor continued, when we asked you to help with Chloe's children, we thought we were asking something reasonable, within family expectations. We didn't realize you would react so, extremely. Extremely? I echoed, catching David's warning glance. I took a breath. Could you clarify what you mean by extreme? Moving out with no warning, George snapped, cutting off all communication. Refusing to talk to us for over a month. I provided 60 days notice as required by the lease, I said calmly. And I stopped communicating after receiving increasingly hostile messages and threats of legal action. Brenda Harrison interjected, my clients acknowledge emotions ran high. They hope to move past it and find a resolution. What kind of resolution? David asked. Eleanor leaned forward. We want you to move back into the apartment. We'll keep the rent at $800, no expectations about childcare. We just want our daughter back in the family. I stared at her, trying to process. You want me to move back? Yes, George confirmed. Your lease hasn't officially ended. You can return anytime, and we'll act like this never happened. The offer was so absurd, I nearly laughed. Why would I do that? Because we're family, Eleanor said, as if that explained everything. Family that coerced me into an impossible situation, threatened my housing security, I shot back. Family that refused to respect my boundaries or my career. Family that expected hundreds of hours of unpaid labor or financial consequences. We made a mistake in how we approached the situation, Brenda Harrison said smoothly. My clients acknowledge, they're offering a fresh start, no strings attached. No strings, David observed, except moving back into a property you control, where you could repeat the same pattern anytime you chose. We wouldn't do that. George insisted. You already did, I said quietly. Why would I trust you not to do it again? Eleanor's composure cracked. Because we're your parents. You're supposed to trust us. Trust is earned, I replied. You violated mine completely. Mr. Hayes intervened before Eleanor could respond. Let's take a step back. What would each party need for the situation to feel resolved? I need my daughter back in our lives, Eleanor said immediately. And what do you need? Mr. Hayes asked me. I thought. I need acknowledgement that what happened was wrong. Not just a mistaken approach, but fundamentally wrong. I need to know you understand you tried to manipulate and coerce me. We weren't trying to manipulate you. George protested. You threatened to nearly double my rent if I didn't provide extensive unpaid childcare, I said clearly. That is, by definition, coercion. You misrepresented the market rent. You orchestrated a situation to corner me into compliance. That's manipulation. Silence. My parents exchanged glances. We were trying to help Chloe, Eleanor finally said. She was completely overwhelmed. I understand that, I said. But Chloe's childcare challenges are not my responsibility to solve, especially not through coercion. Families help each other. George repeated his old line. Helping is voluntary, I countered. What you proposed wasn't help. It was mandatory servitude. Brenda Harrison tried. What if my clients offered a formal apology and guaranteed in writing they'd never interfere with your housing or living situation again? I don't want to live in their property again, I said simply. I like my new apartment. I like my independence. I like not having my housing security depend on their approval. So, you're choosing to stay estranged from your family? Eleanor asked, her voice cracking. I'm choosing to maintain healthy boundaries, I corrected. Those aren't the same thing. What does that mean, practically? Mr. Hayes asked. I considered. It means I'm willing to have a relationship with my parents and sister if they can respect my autonomy. No more ultimatums, no more financial manipulation, no more treating me like I owe them my entire life because of discounted rent. And if we agree to those terms? George asked. Then we could start rebuilding trust. Slowly. Maybe dinner sometimes, visits during holidays. But I won't be moving back into that apartment, and I won't be taking on regular childcare for Chloe's kids. You won't help with the kids at all? Eleanor sounded incredulous. I didn't say that, I clarified. I said I wouldn't take on regular, expected childcare. If Chloe occasionally needs help and asks respectfully, without ultimatums or guilt trips, I'd consider it based on my schedule and availability. But it would be my choice. Not an obligation. More silence. My parents looked at each other, then at Brenda Harrison. Could we have a private moment? George asked. Mr. Hayes nodded. David and I stepped into the hallway. David looked satisfied. You did well in there, he said. Very clear boundaries, reasonable conditions. Do you think they'll agree? I asked. Hard to say. They seem genuinely surprised you're standing firm. 10 minutes later, we were called back. Eleanor and George looked uncomfortable, but resigned. We agree to your terms, George said stiffly. No more ultimatums or financial coercion. We'll respect your boundaries and your choices. And we'd like to have dinner with you, Eleanor added. When you're ready. No pressure. I looked at David, he gave a subtle nod. I'd be willing to have dinner in a few weeks, I said. Somewhere neutral. Just the three of us, initially. What about Chloe? Eleanor asked. Eventually, yes, but I need a separate conversation with her first. They agreed to everything. Brenda Harrison drafted a brief agreement outlining our points. Everyone signed. It wasn't legally binding, I knew, but it felt symbolic. As we stood, Eleanor hesitated. I really am sorry. I didn't see it as manipulation then. I thought I was solving everyone's problems. Not the full acknowledgement I'd hoped for, but it was something. Thank you for saying that, I replied. Mediation over. David and I walked to the parking lot. How do you feel? He asked. Honestly, I'm not sure yet. Relieved, maybe, but also wary. That's healthy. Keep your boundaries clear. Don't let them push you back into old patterns. 2 weeks later, I met Chloe at a coffee shop. She looked utterly exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. The nanny's working out well, she said, after we ordered. Maya loves her, the older kids have adjusted. I'm glad, I said, sincerely. I owe you an apology, Chloe continued. I knew Mom and Dad would pressure you, but I didn't think they'd go that far. And I should have spoken up in that meeting. I should have defended you. Yes, you should have, I agreed. I was desperate, she admitted. Adam's gone so much, I felt like I was drowning. But that doesn't excuse going along with their plan to manipulate you. Why didn't you just hire help? I asked. Pride, I guess, and money. We're comfortable, but not wealthy. Full-time childcare is expensive. When Mom and Dad suggested you, it seemed like an easy solution. Easy for everyone but me, I pointed out. I see that now. She twisted her wedding ring, that old nervous habit. Can you forgive me, eventually? Eventually, maybe. Right now, I'm still processing. We talked for an hour. She told me about the kids, Adam's work, her struggles. I listened, but didn't offer help. She didn't ask. As we left, she hugged me. I missed you, she said. I missed you too, I admitted. But I didn't miss the version of our relationship where my needs were invisible. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. 3 weeks after mediation, I had dinner with Eleanor and George. Neutral restaurant, carefully light conversation. They asked about my new apartment, my job. I asked about their recent vacation. No one mentioned Chloe's kids, childcare, or the old apartment. It felt strange, but civil. Over months, we slowly rebuilt something. Dinner monthly. They visited my new place once, politely complimentary. I sent photos from a work trip to Philadelphia. Eleanor sent a birthday card, the handwritten note almost genuine. Chloe and I had coffee every few weeks. Our conversations grew more natural, but a cautiousness remained, probably forever. I did occasionally babysit Lily, Noah, and Maya, but only when Chloe asked respectfully, and I was available. Maybe once every 6 weeks. The kids were sweet, and without the shadow of coercion, I actually enjoyed spending time with them. My career soared without the constant drain of family manipulation. I had so much more mental energy for work. I got that senior analyst promotion, with a great raise and benefits. I even dated someone from work for a few months. It didn't last, but it was a powerful reminder I had a whole life separate from family drama. Friends, hobbies, career, romance, all existed independently of my parents' approval. Looking back, leaving that apartment was the best decision. Not just escaping manipulation, but forcing everyone to see I was an autonomous adult, with my own life, my own choices. Eleanor and George learned financial leverage couldn't control me. Chloe learned family needs mutual respect, not guilt and obligation. And I learned standing up for myself, even disappointing loved ones, was sometimes the only way forward. That old apartment sat empty for 3 months before Eleanor and George finally rented it to a young couple. $1,100 a month, not the $1,500 they'd claimed. I never mentioned the discrepancy. Some lessons people need to learn on their own. My new apartment became a real home. I decorated it, filled it with plants, art, furniture reflecting my taste. I hosted dinner parties. My routines centered my needs. I woke up each morning in a space entirely mine, no strings, no obligations. That freedom was worth every penny of increased rent, every difficult conversation. Sometimes Eleanor still hinted at wanting me more involved with Chloe's kids. Sometimes George mentioned family investment opportunities. Each time, I politely declined, changed the subject. The boundaries established in that mediation room held firm. My relationship with my family was on my terms now. They tested those boundaries, gently, in the early months. I never gave ground. Gradually, they accepted the new dynamic. Our relationship stabilized into something healthier, if more distant. We'd never have the close family bonds Eleanor always claimed to want, because those bonds had been illusions, propped up by my compliance. The real relationship we built, based on mutual respect and clear boundaries, proved far more sustainable. A year after I left, Aunt Carol invited me to lunch. "Your mother talks about you differently now," she mentioned casually over salads. "How so?" I asked. "With more respect, I think. She still doesn't fully understand your reaction, but she stopped painting you as the villain. She actually bragged about your promotion last month." "Really?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "Really?" "Said you're doing very well, seem happy." Aunt Carol smiled. "I think she's finally realizing you're your own person, not just an extension of the family unit she controls." "Only took 28 years, I said, dryly. Aunt Carol laughed. "Better late than never." We talked about Chloe managing better with the nanny. "She needed professional childcare," Aunt Carol observed. "Trying to make you fill that role was never going to work." "I know," I said. "Doomed from the start." Driving home, I reflected. A year, so much change. The initial anger and hurt faded. I no longer rehearsed arguments or justified choices. The decision felt profoundly right. Disappearing wasn't running away. It was moving towards autonomy, self-respect, a life built on my terms. My parents expected me to fold. Every past conflict ended with me compromising, bending. Their strategy relied on that pattern. My departure shattered it. For the first time, they faced consequences for manipulation. They lost control, had to deal with the chaos they created. They hadn't expected me to leave, to prioritize myself, to enforce boundaries regardless of guilt trips. They threatened my rent, expecting compliance. Instead, I disappeared, leaving them to deal with the chaos. In doing so, I found something far more valuable than any family discount could provide. The freedom to build a life that was genuinely mine. I often wonder, though, if I could have achieved this freedom any other way. What do you think?